Hello, welcome back. Have a good Friday, have a good weekend. I like to go to bed and reading. It's getting dark in like 1 hour. In this 1 hour it's dark. So I will read this 3-1. I will just go to my bed and stay in my bed. Light up. Oh, I need a minute to get to my bed. So I have a long list. I have a long list of stuff I like to read about. I've not been reading books last more than 20 years. So now I read like this.
Cuneiform trilingual cuneiform inscription of Xerxes' Ayatban fortress in Turkey, and Achaemenid royal inscription written in Old Persian, Elamite and Babylonian forms of cuneiform script, typographic and syllabary time period. 3500 BC, 2nd century. A direction left to right language: Sumerian, Akkadian, Eblate, Elamite, Hittite, Hurrian, Lawan, Eurasian, Palic, Aramaic, Old Persian. Related scripts, parent systems: Proto-Cuneiform, Proto-Writing, Cuneiform. Child systems: none. Influenced the shape of Ugaritic and Old Persian. GLYPHS ISO 15924 ISO 15924 XUX 020. Cuneiform. Sumeru Akkadian Unicode Elias Cuneiform Unicode Iranju +12000 to U+123FF Cuneiform. U+12400 to U+1247F Cuneiform. Number sound punctuation. Cuneiform, Note 1, is a logosyllabic writing system that was used to write several languages of the ancient Near East. 3. The script was in active use from the early Bronze Age until the beginning of the Common Era. 4. Cuneiform scripts are marked by and named for the characteristic wedge-shaped impressions, Latin, cuneus, which form their signs. Cuneiform is the earliest known writing system, 5-6, and was originally developed to write the Sumerian language of southern Mesopotamia, modern Iraq. Over the course of its history, cuneiform was adapted to write a number of languages in addition to Sumerian. Akkadian texts are attested from the 24th century BC onward and make up the bulk of the cuneiform record. 7. 8. Akkadian cuneiform was itself adapted to write the Hittite language in the early 2nd millennium BC. 9. 10. The other languages with significant cuneiform corpora are Eblate, Elamite, Hurrian, Lawan, and Eurasian. The Old Persian and Ugaritic alphabets feature cuneiform style signs, however, they are unrelated to the cuneiform logosyllabary proper. The latest known cuneiform tablet dates to 75 AD. 11. Cuneiform was rediscovered in modern times in the early 17th century with the publication of the trilingual Achaemenid royal inscriptions at Persepolis. These were first deciphered in the early 19th century. The modern study of cuneiform belongs to the ambiguously named 12 field of Assyriology, as the earliest excavations of cuneiform libraries in the mid-19th century were in the area of ancient Assyria. 13. An estimated 500,000 tablets are held in museums across the world, but comparatively few of these are published. The largest collections belong to the British Museum, approximate 130,000 tablets, the Vorderasiatisches Museum Berlin, the Louvre, the Istanbul Archaeology Museums, the National Museum of Iraq, The Yale Babylonian Collection, approximate 40,000 tablets, and Penn Museum. 14, 15, History. Writing began after pottery was invented, during the Neolithic, when clay tokens were used to record specific amounts of livestock or commodities. 18. In recent years a contrarian view has arisen on the tokens being the precursor of writing. 19. These tokens were initially impressed on the surface of round clay envelopes, clay bullae, and then stored in them. 18. The tokens were then progressively replaced by flat tablets, on which signs were recorded with a stylus. Writing is first recorded in Iraq, at the end of the 4th millennium BC, and soon after in various parts of the Near East. 18. An ancient Mesopotamian poem gives the first known story of the invention of writing because the messenger's mouth was heavy and he couldn't repeat the message. The Lord of Kilaba patted some clay and put words on it, like a tablet. Until then, there had been no putting words on clay. Sumerian epic poem Enmerkar and the Lord of Irita. c. 1800 BC. 20, 21. The cuneiform writing system was in use for more than 3 millennia, through several stages of development, from the 31 st century BC down to the 2nd century AD. 22. The latest firmly datable tablet, from Iraq, dates to 79/80 AD. 23. Ultimately, it was completely replaced by alphabetic writing, in the general sense, in the course of the Roman era, and there are no cuneiform systems in current use. It had to be deciphered as a completely unknown writing system in 19th century Assyriology. It was successfully deciphered by 1857. The cuneiform script changed considerably over more than 2,000 years. The image below shows the development of the sign Saghed, Borger NR 184, U+12295. Evolution of the cuneiform sign Saghed, 3000-1000 BC. Stages shows the pictogram as it was drawn around 3000 BC. Shows the rotated pictogram as written from c. 2800-2600 BC. Shows the abstracted glyph in archaic monumental inscriptions, from c. 2600 BC. Is the sign as written in clay, contemporary with stage 3. Represents the late 3rd millennium BC. Represents Old Assyrian ductus of the early 2nd millennium BC, as adopted into Hittite. Is the simplified sign as written by Assyrian scribes in the early 1st millennium BC and until the script's extinction. Sumerian pictographs, circa 3300 BC. The cuneiform script was developed from pictographic proto-writing in the late 4th millennium BC, stemming from the Near Eastern token system used for accounting. The meaning and usage of these tokens is still a matter of debate. 25. These tokens were in use from the 9th millennium BC and remained in occasional use even late in the 2nd millennium BC. 26. Early tokens with pictographic shapes of animals, associated with numbers, were discovered in Tel Brak, and date to mid-40th millennium BC. 27. It has been suggested that the token shapes were the original basis for some of the Sumerian pictographs. 28. Accounting tokens Clay Balan tokens 4000-3100 BC, Susa numerical tablet 3500-3350 BC, Uruk V phase, K phage cuneiform tags, with drawing of goat or sheep and number, probably 10, Al-Haseka, 3300-3100 BC Uruk culture, 16, 17. Table illustrating the progressive simplification of cuneiform signs from archaic, vertical, script to Syrian tablet with proto-cuneiform pictographic characters, end of 4th millennium BC, Uruk 3. This is thought to be a list of slaves' names, the hand in the upper left corner representing the owner. 24. The Kish tablet, a limestone tablet from Kish with pictographic, early cuneiform, writing, 3500 BC. Possibly the earliest known example of writing. Ashmolean Museum. Mesopotamia's Proto-Literate period spans roughly the 35th to 32nd centuries BC. First unequivocal written documents start with the Uruk IV period, from circa 3300 BC, followed by tablets found in Uruk III, Jemdet Naz, early dynastic Ur and Susa, in Proto-Elamite, dating to the period until circa 2900 BC. 29. Originally, pictographs were either drawn on clay tablets in vertical columns with a sharpened reed stylus or incised in stone. This early style lacked the characteristic wedge shape of the strokes. 30. Most proto-cuneiform records from this period were of an accounting nature. 31. The proto-cuneiform sign list has grown, as new texts are discovered, and shrunk, as variant scenes are combined. The current sign list is 705 elements long, with 42 being numeric and 4 considered pre-Proto-Elamite. 32, 33, 34. Certain signs to indicate names of gods, countries, cities, vessels, birds, trees, etc., are known as determinatives and were the Sumerian signs of the terms in question, added as a guide for the reader. Proper names continued to be usually written in purely logographic fashion. Archaic cuneiform, c. 2900 BC. Early pictographic signs in archaic cuneiform, used vertically before 2300 BC. 35. The first inscribed tablets were purely pictographic, which makes it technically difficult to know in which language they were rewritten. Different languages have been proposed, though usually Sumerian is assumed. 36. Later tablets dating after 2900 BC start to use syllabic elements, which clearly show a language structure typical of the non-Indo-European agglutinative Sumerian language. 37. The first tablets using syllabic elements date to the early dynastic I2 period, 2800 BC, and they are agreed to be clearly in Sumerian. 38. This is the time when some pictographic elements started to be used for their phonetic value, permitting the recording of abstract ideas or personal names. 38. Many pictographs began to lose their original function, and a given sign could have various meanings depending on context. The sign inventory was reduced from some 1,500 signs to some 600 signs, and writing became increasingly phonological. Determinative signs are reintroduced to avoid ambiguity. Cuneiform writing proper thus arises from the more primitive system of pictographs at about that time, labeled the Early Bronze Age II epoch by historians. The earliest known Sumerian king, whose name appears on contemporary cuneiform tablets, is Enmebaragesi of Kish, fluid c. 2600 BC. 39. Surviving records became less fragmentary for following reigns, and by the arrival of Sargon, it had become standard practice for each major city-state to date documents by year names, commemorating the exploits of its king. Proto-cuneiform tablet, end of the 4th millennium BC. Proto-cuneiform tablet, end of the 40th millennium BC. Proto-cuneiform tablet, Jemdet Naz period, c. 3100-290 BC. Proto-cuneiform tablet, Jemdet Naz period, c. 3100-290 BC. Proto-cuneiform tablet, Jemdet Naz period, c. 3100-290 BC. A dog on a leash is visible in the background of the lower panel. 40. Proto-cuneiform tablet, Jemdet Naz period, c. 3100-290 BC. A dog on a leash is visible in the background of the lower panel. 40. The Bloor monuments combine proto-cuneiform characters and illustrations. 3100–2700 BC. British Museum. The Bloor monuments combine proto-cuneiform characters and illustrations. 3100–2700 BC. British Museum. Cuneiforms and hieroglyphs. Geoffrey Sampson stated that Egyptian hieroglyphs came into existence a little after Sumerian script, and, probably, were invented under the influence of the latter. 41, and that it is probable that the general idea of expressing words of a language in writing was brought to Egypt from Sumerian Mesopotamia. 42, 43. There are many instances of Egypt-Mesopotamia relations at the time of the invention of writing, and standard reconstructions of the development of writing generally place the development of the Sumerian proto-cuneiform script before the development of Egyptian hieroglyphs, with the suggestion the former influenced the latter. 44. But given the lack of direct evidence for the transfer of writing, no definitive determination has been made as to the origin of hieroglyphics in ancient Egypt. 45. Others have held that the evidence for such direct influence remains flimsy and that a very credible argument can also be made for the independent development of writing in Egypt. 46. Early dynastic cuneiform, circa 2500 BC. Sumerian inscription in monumental archaic style, c. 26th century BC. Early cuneiform inscription were made by using a pointed stylus, sometimes called linear cuneiform. 47. Many of the early dynastic inscriptions, particularly those made on stone, continued to use the linear stylus later circa 2000 BC. 47. In the mid-3rd millennium BC, a new wedge-tipped stylus was introduced which was pushed into the clay, producing wedge-shaped cuneiform. This development made writing quicker and easier, especially when writing on soft clay. 47. Adjusting the relative position of the stylus to the tablet. The writer could use a single tool to make a variety of impressions. 47. For numbers, a round-tipped stylus was initially used, until the wedge-tipped stylus was generalized. 47. The direction of writing was from top to bottom and right to left. 47. Cuneiform clay tablets could be fired in kilns to bake them hard, and so provide a permanent record, or they could be left moist and recycled if permanence was not needed, so surviving cuneiform tablets have largely been preserved by accident. 47. From linear to angular wedge-tipped stylus for cuneiform writing on clay tablets. The regnal name Lugal Dalu in archaic linear script circa 2500 BC, and same name stylized with standard Sumero-Akkadian cuneiform. The script was also widely used on commemorative stelae and carved reliefs to record the achievements of the ruler in whose honor the monument had been erected. The spoken language included many homophones and near-homophones, and in the beginning, similar-sounding words such as life, till, and arrow, t, were written with the same symbol. With rise of the Akkadian language, some signs gradually changed from being pictograms to syllabograms, most likely to make things clearer in writing. In that way, the sign for the word arrow would become the sign for the sound t. Contract for the sale of a field and our house in the wedge-shaped cuneiform adapted for clay tablets. Shuruppak, circa 2600 BC. Words that sounded alike would have different signs. For instance, the syllable u had 14 different symbols. When the words had a similar meaning but very different sounds, they were written with the same symbol. For instance, tooth, zu, mouth, ka, and voice, gu, were all written with the symbol for voice. To be more accurate, scribes start editing two signs or combining two signs to define the meaning. They used either geometrical patterns or another cuneiform sign. As time went by, the cuneiform got very complex and the distinction between a pictogram and syllabogram became vague. Several symbols had too many meanings to permit clarity. Therefore, symbols were put together to indicate both the sound and the meaning of a compound. The word raven, UGA, had the same logogram as the word so.